Welcome back. I am excited to dive into today's topic because I feel like it is not given enough time and attention in the intuitive eating space, and that is nutrition. I have had so many people, and I've also seen my clients struggle with this. And one of the reasons why clients reach out to get support is because you have decided you're done with dieting, you've heard about intuitive eating, you feel like it is the way for you to go, it feels aligned, it clicks. You let go of all the food rules, or you think you let go of all the food rules, which we'll talk about soon. And you're just letting yourself eat all the things. Now, at some point, though, you feel free that you're not dieting anymore, but you also don't feel good. And you know that focusing more on nutrition and perhaps eating a vegetable or having more nourishing meals would help you feel good, but you feel so confused as to what is healthy anymore. What nutrition advice should I be listening to? Maybe you even feel resistance because you're thinking, I don't want to go back to diet culture. I don't want to go back to food rules and dieting. And so the topic of nutrition, even though you know it's important, you feel very lost and confused about. And ultimately, it's leading you to not feel good. And true food freedom means you're also feeling empowered with food and feeling good in your body and caring for it. So I want to help you click that piece of the puzzle for you when it comes to nutrition. How do you incorporate it in a way that isn't triggering? How do you know what nutrition advice is sound nutrition advice and healthy nutrition advice versus harmful advice to stay away from? What do you do if you do feel resistant to it and worry that you're going to get triggered back into dieting? How do you even get started without triggering the food rules? I'm going to dive into all of this today. And if you find this episode helpful, please, please, please share it with someone that you care about. Share it with someone who you believe would find it helpful so that this podcast can grow and help more people. And so, first of all, let's get one thing straight. Nutrition does matter. It is not the end all be all to all of your health or health issues, but it is something that makes a difference and impacts your health. And intuitive eating is not saying that it doesn't matter. In fact, it's part of the 10 principles. It's the last principle because we want to make sure that it's coming from a healthy intention, but it does matter. And you should be able to feel confident in knowing how to nourish yourself in a way that feels good and benefits you. But first and foremost, when we're approaching nutrition, specifically and especially in this conversation, I want you to know that diet culture doesn't own nutrition. A lot of times, I'll see people throwing out the baby with the bathwater because any kind of conversation about a vegetable reminds you of dieting days and feels diety, but that's just diet culture hijacking vegetables, right? Like I always love to say zucchini. Before it became zoodles and, turned into everything that it's not, it was just a zucchini chilling out at the farm, being an awesome zucchini. It never wanted to be pasta because it's not pasta, right? And so I want to help you reclaim nutrition from diet culture and make zucchini a zucchini again so that when you do eat the zucchini, it's because you enjoy zucchini, not because you're trying to enjoy pasta. And of course, it ain't working if you're having zucchini instead. And it's also okay if you're not ready for this conversation. Healing happens in phases. And that's the first thing I want to address is your readiness for the conversation around nutrition. So if you're just starting to heal your relationship with food, how do you approach nutrition if you've had a disordered relationship with food? Again, the nutrition confusion. How do I know who to follow? How do I know what advice is right or wrong? And where do I start implementing the gentle nutrition and, doing it in a way that isn't triggering? Dive in and answer all of that. It makes sense that any nutrition conversation would feel triggering because you still have food rules to work through. You want to really neutralize and remove the morality around food. So yeah, food can make you feel good or feel bad, but you are not good or bad based on what you eat. And you really want to learn to reconnect to your internal cues of hunger and fullness. And nutrition, if we talk about it too soon, it could then turn into food rules, keep you from actually listening to your body. So nutrition is important, but it's really about when to start having that conversation. The first focus and what I work with my clients first and foremost is reclaiming your hunger and fullness cues. So making sure that you are eating enough and eating consistently, and being able to actually sense your fullness as well as overcoming food rules. Because a lot of times, if you want nutrition to be simple and easy and joyful, we got to talk about those food rules, because a lot of your food rules are actually about perfectly nutritious, beneficial foods, especially if you're binge eating. We want to get the binge eating to stop or to slow down, to definitely reduce to some extent and for your body to feel safe. And if you're on the other side of the spectrum, which is really all part of the same pendulum, in being super restrictive, we need to get you to be eating enough. And again, to overcome the food rules. And it's okay if nutrition conversations come a bit later. Usually the nutrition conversations come when you're starting to have a healthier relationship with food. You've overcome a lot of the food rules. You are eating consistently, but now you're at a place where, okay, I'm giving myself permission to eat all these things, but I don't really feel so great. And logically, I know that eating in a more nourishing way with more nutrient dense foods is going to make my body feel better. And the intention is really about self-care and feeling your best. And that's how you know that you're ready. It doesn't mean that no nutrition conversation could happen in, earlier on. But it's more so assessing your readiness to really dive in and lead from a place of self-care when having conversations about nutrition. Now, here's the thing. If you're ready for nutrition, but you have this like immediate response from your body where it's telling you, like, logically, we know that we want to feel our best and have a vegetable, but it's like your nervous system tightens up and is like, oh, resistance. I don't want that. Like, no. I don't want to diet. This reminds me of dieting. And you also have a fear of reverting back to dieting. And so there can be, trauma actually related to that. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has trauma. You don't always have to have PTSD to be considered someone who has trauma. Trauma comes in different levels. And in this context, when I'm talking about trauma, I'm talking about experience where you were disconnected from yourself. And so think back to your history of dieting and food rules. And I use vegetables because that's just such a common one when it comes to people when they think about nutrition. It's like, oh, eating more vegetables. And yeah, absolutely, eating more vegetables will benefit you, but it's all about context and why you're eating that vegetable. How are you eating that vegetable? And so if you have a past history of, let's say, when you were little, that your mom or a dietitian or nutritionist or someone told you you're not getting dessert unless you eat all the vegetables and you absolutely hated it, or even just as an adult or teenager, whatever point in your dieting history, you were on this diet where you made yourself eat vegetables you didn't really like, or maybe you ate so many vegetables you're burnt out from it. And it just gives you the emotional memory of restriction and deprivation. So the way the work brains in this processing is you have the hippocampus in your brain, which remembers situations and facts as they happen. And then you have the amygdala in your brain. The amygdala is the emotional processing part of your brain. So you have the events that happened, and then you have the emotions attached to that event. So the event, a similar event could happen now. It's a completely different event at a different time, but because the event is similar, it registers to your brain that similar past experience. And then the emotion that you experience isn't actually the current situation. It's the emotion of the past situation that's similar to now. Even though right now you might be perfectly safe, like you're not actually dieting and you're going to eat a vegetable because you want to be eating a vegetable. If in the past you were forced to eat vegetables or you were restricted and deprived, the emotional memory of that feeling of being on a diet is going to create resistance. And you're like, oh, I don't want that emotion. I don't want to feel that way. And now you have this resistance to nutrition. And so if this is the case for you, which it might not be for everyone, but just take a moment to reflect, like, does your nervous system respond negatively? Like it gets uptight, or, this avoidance to even talking about nutrition. Is that coming from past negative experiences with dieting and feeling deprived and having that fear of going back to that? So of course, if that's how you feel about it and those are the experiences that you had, you're not going to want to talk about nutrition if you associate it with that. What you need to do are three things. Number one, recognize that, this emotion that you're feeling doesn't have to do with the present moment. Because in the present moment, you have permission to eat what you want. You simply want to eat vegetables, right? It's setting your intention. My intention is to feel my best. And so You having a vegetable now does not mean that you're now going back to restriction. And so recognizing that the emotions you're feeling is really just memory from your nervous system, and that you have the power to reparent yourself in the moment and tell yourself, oh, hey, Sarah, this how you're feeling right now is really like your inner child or you from 10 years ago. And I just want to remind you, like, we're not in that place. You eating this salad right now, that does not mean that you are dieting. We logically know you want to feel your best, right? So kind of recognizing where this is coming from, acknowledging it, and then two, reparenting yourself through it, learning to breathe through it as well, knowing that the feeling will pass, and then experimenting and giving your brain new evidence that it is safe to talk about nutrition, to engage with nutrition. And let's say you have that like salad with salmon. First of all, assessing, hey, are there any food rules here? Like, do I have dressing in there? Or do I feel like I can't have dressing, right? Okay, let's hold up before we get to nutrition. Let's get back to talking about food rules. Because it's essential for nutrition to feel simple and easy, remember? And so assessing, okay, I have the dressing in there. I have some sweet potato on top of there, some toppings, some salmon. Okay, super nutrient dense food in this salad. Experiment, right? Breathe through it. Know that if you know logically this is going to make you feel your best, and you also, it tastes good, right? Like obviously you want to eat foods that taste good. If this salad's not tasting good, don't force yourself to eat it because quote unquote it's healthy. Again, that's a food rule signal to work through. But start eating it and, slowly kind of chew it, assess how you're feeling about it, get curious. And then after you finish it, especially if you've enjoyed this salad, you can now let yourself acknowledge that moment in saying, hey, I had a salad because I wanted to, because it felt good. I also, part of my reason for choosing it is so I should feel my best. And I wasn't on a diet, and I could, still have cake later today if I want to. And so now you're building yourself new evidence to your brain to start overriding the negative association and really kind of healing the gap of your past self and the, dieting trauma that you've had, and your current healed self of, oh, wait, nutrition actually is safe. And I've proven that to myself. So take a moment to assess that, remembering that diet culture doesn't own nutrition, and that your past experiences with nutrition do not have to dictate the future ones, and any kind of stress or negative feelings. It might mean you need more time to heal your relationship and, food rules, and being more in tune with your body. Or it just might mean that you need to acknowledge and recognize this is a past experience that your brain is shooting off signals to your body. It doesn't mean you have to listen to it. It's just breathing through it and knowing that you are kind of reparenting yourself, right? You are the parent to that inner child who feels that way. Inner child can be a 19-year-old too. You know what I'm saying? And building new evidence by eating that meal and seeing how you feel, knowing that you're not tied into it, right? It's all about your intentions and feeling good. And so before we get into, okay, I'm ready to dive into the nutrition piece, I'm going to do this reparenting. I know that I really genuinely want to just feel my best and be able to have these conversations. How do you filter through all that advice out there, right? Like I'm about to tell you information. And so you have a bajillion other people, especially in social media these days, just throwing out nutrition information to you. And you could get confusing. Like, how do you know who to listen to? So let's go through some criteria. Instead of telling you who to listen to, who not to listen to, I want to give you some tools and insights to use for when you're getting nutrition advice to kind of filter them through this, these checkpoints and see, okay, do they pass the checkpoints for me to actually consider the nutrition advice that they're giving? So first of all, if anyone is giving information that is sensational or extreme, that's a red flag. Nutrition for most people is very simple and basic, but people don't like that. People like sensational and extreme because it's so much more interesting. But you know what? A lot of nutrition is actually not extreme or sensational. And so if anyone is kind of saying like cut out a food group, or I found, do the celery juicing because this is what's going to cure everything. If anyone ever tells you this one thing's going to cure everything, or cutting out something is going to cure everything for you, be wary. That's a red flag. I would not, take in that nutrition advice. That's a very big red flag. Number two is, who is this person that you're listening to? If it's an influencer who's just passionate about health, that's great. Good for you. but that does not qualify her to be giving nutrition advice to other people. Knowing how to eat doesn't turn you into a nutritionist, just like knowing how to change a light bulb doesn't turn you into an electrician. And so, really assessing what is this person's experience, what's their credentialing, to decide for yourself, like, okay, is this someone who's credible? And by the way, I respect doctors. Doctors are great, but that we have something in our culture where we see the MD or the doctor and automatically like, oh my God, the Holy Grail, like everything they say is like amen, amen, amen. But a lot of people don't know that doctors get at max 2 hours of nutrition education. They are experts at medicine, not at nutrition. And so even when you see someone who is a doctor, look through the advice that they're giving with a critical eye. Is it trying to be sensational or extreme? Or, is it focused on the lens of, through the lens of health? Or is it attached to, and you'll lose weight? Or is it posted with a before and after picture of losing X amount of pounds, right? Is it about, oh, this is going to give you nutritional benefits and this is good for XYZ and leading more with what you can have? Or is it more fear mongering? Like I actually recently saw someone on Instagram, this account with like hundreds and thousands of followers. Every single reel of his starts with, this is trash, this is garbage, this is poison, this is toxic. And just so fear-mongering. And surprise, surprise, this guy has like no credentialing. I think he's just a personal trainer. And so really be critical and choosy with who you're taking advice from. And through what lens are they sharing it, right? Is it fear-mongering or more kind and compassionate about caring for your health? Is it through, the weight loss lens or the health? And do not confuse the two. Okay, they are not one and the same. One might result, right? Weight loss may result as a result of behavioral, healthy behavior changes. It also might not result in weight loss. And some people might even gain weight when they're learning to care for their health, depending on their situation. And so if anyone is sharing information through, do this and you'll lose weight, you can know that that's not really advice to take in for you, especially if you're trying to do it through the lens of caring for your health versus weight loss. Not that we're anti-weight loss in and of itself, but advice should really be shared about caring for your health, regardless of your weight, versus here's the before and after picture, do what I did and you'll lose weight. That's not really about health. And then this is the big one, okay? When someone says research says, I know that gives this automatic kind of feeling of credibility, but it's not enough. Research says, okay, well, what does the research say in the research paper? Because you need context for that research. In fact, when I was in undergrad, I took an entire course for a whole semester on how to read not nutrition, research papers to know if it's adequate and good evidence to actually be recommending. And so things that you want to be looking at is how many participants were in this study. Was it like a case study of 3 people, or did you have thousands of people? Was there a control group? Was it done on mice, human beings, women, men? How long was the follow-up? How often did they follow up? Did they consider any other factors in their research? Because it's so easy to say research says and sound all sensational, when in reality, when you look at the context, it's really not that great of a research paper. And then everyone gets in a tizzy about like what the research says. And I'll give you one really good example is this research paper had come out a while ago about, oh my God, look, we have evidence that sugar is as addicting as cocaine. Look at how the brains of these mice lit up and how it's the same as like drug addiction. And everyone's like freaking out how sugar is like addicting and is like drugs, which is absolutely nuts because it's not. So to give you context, when you're actually looking at the research paper, first of all, consider the fact that these are mice, not human beings. But beyond that, the mice that showed the same reward response to the brain that was on cocaine. First of all, they do go through the same reward center in the brain. So it is normal for your brain reward centers to light up and to get dopamine hit when you eat food, because that also motivates us to eat. Imagine if food wasn't pleasurable, we wouldn't really be wanting to eat, would we? And then we would all die on like an extreme level, of course. And so food is meant to give you a reward response. The difference between food and drugs is that drugs actually hijack that neural pathway and create the addiction where food doesn't. But the reason why they got these responses from the mice is that if you read the paper, you'll see that the mice were actually starved before by, I think they didn't eat for like 12 hours or like a significant amount of time. They didn't get any food. And then they were given glucose water, right? Like literally like pure sugar water. And then they got this extra, high reward response and were drinking a lot of it. And if anything, I think that research shows the effects of restriction and how that can fuel overeating and binge eating. And that's actually part of what happens with binge eating, especially if you're someone who undereats, who restricts and then overeat. What happens is that your reward response is higher than someone who's eating enough. And that's a survival mechanism to get you to eat. And so you really want to make sure that when someone says research says, you're allowed to get curious and ask, hey, can I see that research? Or can you give me more information about that research? Because a lot of times, especially when it's something sensational, you really want to get context for that research before you go following that advice. And even if the research shows like good evidence for something, you still need to consider, does this work for my personality, my life, my history, right? And so research says is not, the end all be all of like, but the research says. It's like, okay, what research is this? Does it have context that makes sense? And then does it even, work for my life? And so now that you kind of know the filter to put through the nutrition information that you're getting, and you feel ready to work on the nutrition piece of your journey and have the intentions of self-care, where do you start? Where do I even start with this piece of nutrition? There's just so much to learn, right? And there is a lot to learn with nutrition, not a ton, but more than would fit into this episode. But what I always like to begin, where I think is a great starting place, is asking yourself, what can I add to feel my best? And my recommendation is to start by asking yourself, what protein can I add to my meals and snacks? And I usually start with protein because a lot of people, they already like carbs and maybe eating carbs or want to give themselves, are giving themselves permission to eat carbs. And that's great. But carbs on their own, you might not feel as, lasting energy from that snack or meal and crash sooner or really not feel your best. And so protein helps to help you feel more satiated, helps to balance the blood sugars and slow the absorption of the sugars from the carbs, which your body needs, by the way. Don't translate this as something negative. Your body needs glucose. That is your body's preferred source of energy. So we need carbs. When you add it with protein, you will feel more balanced and help you feel more in control. So asking yourself, where can I start? Okay, if I have a cookie per snack, can I add nuts or cheese or some kind of protein source? If I'm having a bagel, can I have it with eggs? Obviously, choose the protein that you want, but assessing for yourself, like, what can I add that I enjoy that's going to also help me feel good? So it's not about taking away the carbs. It's about asking yourself, what protein can I add? Now, if you're someone who already like eats the protein and you actually have struggle with like food rules of allowing yourself carbs, then you might have to ask yourself, okay, what carb can I add and work through that food rule? Because you will feel more energetic if you're having your protein with carbs, because the carbs is, again, your body's preferred fuel source. And it's also going to help reduce your cravings throughout the day, because if you find yourself craving a lot of things, it could be because you're not eating enough carbs. And especially if you're trying to restrict that, you're just going to increase your craving to it. So asking yourself, if you're eating a carb, what protein can I add? If you're eating a protein, what carb can I add? And then building upon that and asking, okay, now what vegetable or fruit can I add? And that's going to give you more vitamins and minerals and fiber. That's going to help you with satiation. Blood sugar is going to help with going to the bathroom, and overall feel your best. And again, be flexible with it. You don't have to have just a fresh salad. You can have roasted vegetables, sauteed vegetables. This is the benefit of working through your food rules first and foremost, because then nutrition becomes so much easier. Because if you think about it, so much of your food rules might just be about foods that are actually nutrient dense. Like I remember I had a client who had food rules about like sweet potato and rice and just different, carbs, different carbs in the carb group. And they were perfectly nourishing carbs. And so that's why it's so important to first work through the food rules. And it's going to make nutrition and making choices for your meals so much easier. And you can have that build upon each other and really leading also with how you feel. So much of the nutrition recommendations match up with listening to your body. Because, for example, a dietitian or any nutrition professional might tell you, okay, well, you don't want to be eating too many cakes and cookies and pizza and burger and all those things. Do you really need someone to tell you that if you're paying attention to how you feel? Because you're probably not going to feel great just eating only those foods. Do you really need someone to tell you, okay, so it's beneficial to have vegetables and fruit and fiber? No, because if you pay attention to your body, you're naturally going to want to incorporate that because it's going to feel good. So much of our intuition matches up to the nutrition recommendation. And if it's not matching up for you, that may be because you have more of, again, the mindset, the healing to do around your history with dieting and food rules and learning to pay attention to your cues. I remember I have a client who, when I first met with her, she told me, Rachel, I have a stomach of steel. Like, I know this intuitive eating is great and all, you could say whatever, eat whatever you want, but like, I feel just fine having 7 chocolates. And I don't feel a difference between like chocolate and vegetables and like all these things that people say I should naturally feel, I don't feel. And at the time, it made sense for her because she had so much dieting damage done to her body that she needed to heal. And she wasn't even hearing her hunger cues. I mean, she was just starting to eat at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And so, of course, if you're not even hearing your hunger cues, you're not going to hear when your body's telling you, I feel good, I feel bad, because you're so disassociated and disconnected from your body. And that's a signal to focus on that first. That's why nutrition conversations, again, might take time to get to because you want to make sure that you're getting the information from your body. And in order to do that, for example, this client, the first thing we worked on is learning to eat consistently. That means she needed to learn how to eat breakfast, even though she didn't feel hungry. With time, she started to get her hunger cues back. And then from there, we focused on, okay, let's add some protein, right? And see how it's feeling. And then suddenly she started to feel a difference between drinking a can of Coke and drinking a bottle of water, right? It's not about this is good, this is bad, or I'm good or I'm bad, but naturally, through learning to get her hunger cues back, overcoming the food rules, and getting rid of the mental noise, she can finally start to hear her body. And now she can sense the difference. And she doesn't need me to tell her, maybe you don't want to eat 7 chocolate bars. She herself feels awful if she eats 7 chocolate bars. When a few months ago, she had a stomach of steel. So if you're the same way and you're like, Rachel, all this sounds good, so like intuitively, like feel the difference between, having a vegetable, not having a vegetable. If you're not feeling it yet, that's just a signal that you have, more work to do on reclaiming your cues and overcoming the food rules. You will get there and definitely get support if you are struggling in figuring that piece out, because eventually I promise you, um, unless there's like some kind of medical condition, metabolic issue, some underlying factor for most people, eventually you do get to this place of, oh, I really feel a difference between eating like 5 cookies and a nourishing meal with like, vegetables. Not to make one good or bad, but more so how you physically want to feel. Okay. Remember, we're removing the moral value of this. And I've had clients who will share with me when they genuinely like willingly want a salad and feel good. And it's like, I can't believe I can choose anything I want. And my body's literally telling me like, I want to enjoy this salad and I know how to nourish myself and, make balanced meals. And it feels so simple because they've done the inner work and the healing to get to this place so nutrition feels like easy and good. Now, the last part of nutrition that I want to talk with you about is when you are confused as to what is the healthy choice. Do I choose, is it healthy for me to choose the cookie or the salad? And immediately you might be thinking, obviously, it's like healthier to choose the salad. This is where I want you to reframe instead of saying healthy or healthier. asking yourself, okay, which is the more nutrient dense choice? Sure, the salad is more nutrient dense, but whether it's healthy or not will depend on the context and your intention. So, for example, if you are at a birthday party and everyone's having a slice of cake, and your reason for not having the slice of cake is because you're trying to be healthy, but then you're looking around, you don't feel like you're really so much part of it, where everyone's enjoying the cake and talking about how delicious it is, and you're just sitting there watching them. Maybe you are feeling like deprived, restricted, and it just does not feel good. It's taking away some part of your life. It's taking up mental space and energy to be able to do that. You're not fully present. In that context, it's healthier to just have the slice of cake, enjoy yourself, be part of the, experience and move on. Now, if your struggle is, okay, how do I have a slice and move on? That's a whole other conversation. I have episodes on, binge eating, how to stop binge eating and separate episodes, and I recommend also, if you're struggling with this, DM me or email me, Rachel at Rachel Go Nutrition, the words free guide in control, and I will send you my free guide on 3 steps on how to feel in control with food and to enjoy the foods you love in amounts that feel good, because that is a whole process to work through as well. So feel free to message me on that and I'll send it to you, or you can get it in the link in my bio. Usually it's available in the link in my bio on Instagram, or on my website, Rachel at rachelgonutrition.com. So there's so many places you can get it. But if you just want to DM me, I'll send it to you as well. But anyway, in that context, you're not being healthy by not having it. But if you were to say, you know what, I know that I already had quite a bit of cakes and cookies earlier today. Or maybe you have blood sugar issues and your blood sugar is elevated because of that earlier in the day. And I want to really care for my health. And I know that I can have cookies whenever I want. And right now, based on how I ate earlier today and where my blood sugars are at, it doesn't make sense to have it. It wouldn't be caring for my health. I'm not good or bad, but I want to just care for myself. So I'm going to have cake another time. Or maybe you're just not in the mood and you just know that you're not going to feel good when you're having cake, right? These are all reasons where saying no to cake would be the healthier option, considering the context. So choosing the nutrient dense option or the fun food, whether it's healthy to choose one or the other is going to be context. And I want to give you an example with a client to help kind of take this home for you and help you make these decisions for yourself in your life. So my client, we had been working on, again, getting like her cues back in the morning. And we made a plan for her busy day to have a smoothie with some Greek yogurt, so she has protein in there, some fruit, and nutrients, and to feel good and get the energy and the carbs and basically everything that her body feels good with and works for her life, and to also get her hunger cues back. Now, one morning, her older daughters came to her and said, "Hey, Mom, we want to go out with you to this like bakery and get some pastries." And so she wanted obviously to have this experience with her girls, and she also wanted to demonstrate a healthy relationship with food. So she went out and had the pastry. But then afterwards, she came and she said, "Rachel, was that really the healthy choice? Like, I'm conflicted because, isn't the pastry going to elevate my blood sugar?" She actually we were working on managing her blood sugars. That was definitely a point of emphasis for her. And so was it the healthy thing to do, not healthy thing to do? So this is where you want to consider 3 things to make the choice that is right for you. One is, yes, there's nutrition information. We're not going to deny that. So if you're going to compare, let's say, the pastry, and then another option there, I think, was like avocado toast with an egg, or, it's one of those things. They're not the same nutritionally. So a pastry is going to give you carbs, right? Energy. There's no fiber in there, some fat, but no real protein. So especially having it first thing in the morning, it is going to impact blood sugar more and create a spike, right? Which is not good for your blood sugars to happen often. And then the multigrain sourdough bread with avocado and the egg has fat, has fiber, has protein. And the carbs from the bread is not going to just shoot up the blood sugar because you have the protein and the fat and the fiber. And that's going to slow the absorption. It's not going to impact blood sugar in the same way. So for example, perhaps the pastry is gonna, well, if you're listening on the podcast, then you won't see my hands, but the pastry is going to shoot up like higher, right, at a higher level, and then the bread will go up, but like not have as much as a spike. So in terms of how it's going to impact health in that one meal context, the bread with the avocado and egg has a better impact on health. So that's the nutrition information to help you make an informed decision. Again, doesn't make you good or bad, it's just factual. Then you have the second factor, which is, how's the body going to feel? Like, do you feel good with having a pastry in the morning? Do you physically feel good and energized in how you want to feel versus when you have the toast with egg and avocado? So let your body be taken into consideration, because if you physically don't feel good with the pastry in the morning, then it's not even a conversation about the nutrition. Like, I want to feel my best, right? So it's a very simple, much easier decision, especially when you know you could have pastries in the afternoon if you want. And then there's the third factor, which is, where does this fit in right now into your life and your values and how you want to experience it? So it could be that right now you really want, the pastry is going to elevate your blood sugar, or you're not going to feel so great after, but you have the body autonomy to still make the decision to say, you know what, but the pastry also looks like really good, and I want to enjoy this experience with my girls. And so I know the quote unquote price I'm going to pay. We're not talking about calories or weight or anything like that, but okay, I'm not going to feel my best. My blood sugars are going to be elevated. But given the context of my day, for the most part, I'm eating a variety of foods. I know that my body has been feeling good. And so I feel like this is a choice that's in alignment with how I want to live my life. And that, one meal is not going to make or break my health. And that's the healthy decision in that context. Now, it could also be healthy to say, you know what, I don't feel so great with the pastry after, and I know it's going to elevate my blood sugars, and I want to be more intentional with that. So I'm going to have the toast with avocado and egg. Another situation could be, I know that I can have the pastry in the afternoon, and I'm not going to like feel my best in the morning having a pastry. So again, I'm going to choose the toast over the pastry. Or combining the two. Let's not be rigid. It doesn't have to be and or. Maybe it'll be, I'll have half of the pastry and get, the scrambled egg breakfast and have the two together, because that's also going to help you feel satisfied with having the pastry and also have the protein in there to reduce the impact on blood sugar. I just gave you, I think, 4 different scenarios of how this can play out. Each one could be healthy choice for you. So taking into consideration, yes, having nutrition information, pairing that with your body, and then body autonomy of what makes the most sense for my life and overall. Like if my blood sugar was kind of high, or I had a lot of, high sugar foods yesterday, I know that it's probably not going to benefit me 2 days in a row. I can have pastry whenever I want. Hey, I could say no to the pastry, and that's okay. Food freedom is also knowing when to say yes and when to say no. You don't always have to say yes to every single food, but in order to get to this place, and if you're not at this place yet, that's okay. But in order to get to this place, you really need to work on, first and foremost, working through your food rules, reclaiming your cues, and then all this conversation that I'm sharing with you now, if it feels so far off, it will start to feel more natural and good and easy, because it's not just me who's an example of that. My clients have experienced that too, where they can't believe they get to this place where it's like, oh, okay, it's like so simple. And it's simple because you've taken the time to heal your relationship with food. And then the nutrition conversations truly feel authentically about caring for yourself. And so when it comes to what's the healthier choice, let's kind of filter that, like separate that from nutrient dense choice and fun foods, and knowing that there's room for both, and the healthy choice is the one that works best for you, and you know what that is. So yes, let's have nutrition information, but don't weaponize that against yourself, and put that within the context of how your body feels and the freedom to decide what works best for you and your life, and giving context, right? Like one meal or food is not going to make or break your health. So really zoom out and look at the bigger picture and what else is going on. So I want you to assess for yourself, where are you at in your healing journey, right? Like, what point are you at, and what are you ready to implement? Are you ready for nutrition? Maybe this whole conversation was great, but you're not ready for it. And right now you're still working on overcoming food rules, or maybe you really need to take time to tune into your body and get the information from your body. Maybe you need to work on reclaiming the mindset of getting back nutrition from diet culture and healing any past traumas that you have with nutrition, so you can reclaim it for yourself and not let diet culture steal that from you, right? Because it could be such an nourishing, empowering part of your life and creating new evidence that, hey, nutrition is safe and it's really about caring for myself and doesn't mean that I am dieting. Maybe if you're ready for that, it's starting with, okay, what can I add? What can I start with adding? Do I start, do I need to focus on adding more protein? Or maybe I have the protein and carbs and I just need to work on adding vegetables. What can I add? And this can also now overflow over to adding movement, adding sleep. There's so much when it comes to your health that's beyond food that you can focus on adding. But for the sake of this conversation, we're talking about food. But overall, asking yourself, what can I add to make me feel my best? Because by default, if you're focusing on things that make you feel good and adding that, the things that don't make you feel good start to lessen because you're so focused on what does make you feel good. And it's through an abundant mindset that doesn't make you feel restricted or deprived. And so even with, let's say, medical conditions, whether it's like blood sugar issues or blood pressure or GI issues, things that my clients have had, there is a nuanced way to go about this in being able to care for your health and feel empowered with nutrition while maintaining a healthy relationship with food. And this is what this episode is really about and why I wanted to share it with you, because I want you to know that nutrition does matter. And there's a way to embrace it where it feels like a positive part of your life and not something that's being taken away from you. And it can be so simple and so joyful because true food freedom is not just feeling free. Yes, it's important to feel free to enjoy all foods and fun foods and live your life. And if that's the only thing that you've been working on, at some point, you're probably not going to feel your best. And healing your relationship with food means also healing your relationship with vegetables, right? With fiber, with protein, with nutrition. That is food too. And feeling like that can be a positive part of your life too, so you can feel your best, because feeling truly free also means feeling good. And if you need support in this, please, please reach out and get support, because if you've been in the phase of letting go of food rules and diets, but you still don't feel good, and that missing piece is working through this together. So if you found this helpful and this is all you needed, that's amazing. But if you've been feeling stuck in implementing it and tailoring it and customizing it to your life, I encourage you to get one-on-one support. And if you've been resonating with what I share and you want to work together and talk through how we can do that, feel free to reach out to me, DM me at dietitian.rachelgoodman, email me, rachel@rachelgoodnutrition.com, and we could have a no pressure conversation about what's going on for you and how one-on-one coaching can help you implement everything I've shared with you into your life. Or maybe this sounds like the great end goal you want to get to, but you're still stuck in the beginning phases. This is ultimately where you can get to, but it's okay if you need support to figure out all the messy in between, so this feels empowering and good to you. So definitely let me know your takeaway from this episode. I always love hearing from you and so appreciate your thoughts and feedback. If you found this helpful, again, please share it, leave a review. It's so helpful to get other people to hear this as well and help them heal their relationship with food. And so thank you for listening, for being here. I hope that you have found this helpful. I encourage you to walk away with asking yourself, from everything that I've shared with you today, what is one thing that I can work on with where I'm at right now to get closer to feeling my best in an empowering way? I'll see you next time.